If you're thinking about moving to Northern Virginia, one of the most important and honestly one of the most misunderstood decisions you're going to make is about your daily commute. Not how far it is, not what Google Maps says at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but what it actually feels like on a Thursday morning when it's raining, school is in session, and everyone else is trying to get to the same place that you are. I've lived in this area for over 30 years. I started out in Arlington, and early in my career, when I was practicing law, I was taking the metro into DC every single day. And that experience sticks with you. There's a rhythm to it. Standing on the platform, being surrounded by people who are all heading somewhere important, reading, thinking, preparing. But I've also seen the other side. I've seen people fall in love with a house and then 6 months later realize that the commute is shaping their entire day and their entire life in a way that they did not expect. So in this video, I want to help you think about this the right way, because in Northern Virginia, your commute is not just a minor detail. It's a part of your lifestyle. My name is Brian Block. I'm a real estate broker with RE/MAX Allegiance based in Alexandria, Virginia. Prior to real estate, I practiced law, and specifically real estate law, taking that experience with contracts and negotiations into better serving my real estate clients every day with their purchases and sales. I've lived in the DC area for over 30 years, starting out in Arlington, and then spending most of my time since then in Alexandria. And I've been helping buyers and sellers here for more than 20 years. One of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking it's only 10 miles. People moving here from other areas of the country often tell me that they want to be within 20 miles of work without really understanding the reality of that here in Northern Virginia. And here, that doesn't mean what you think it means, because Northern Virginia runs on choke points, highway merges, unpredictable slowdowns. And once you understand that, everything changes. This is not a grid city. This is a funnel system. And certain places and certain roads carry a disproportionate amount of the area's traffic. And that's where your overall commuting experience in Northern Virginia is going to be shaped. When you're commuting into DC, the cleanest version of that experience is still the metro. Arlington and National Landing, areas like Roslyn, Courthouse, Clarendon, Ballston, Crystal City, and National Landing. From these areas, catching the metro is easy, and you may even be within easy walking distance of a station. National Landing in particular has become a major hub recently, especially with Amazon HQ2. And from these areas, your commute can be structured, predictable, and relatively low stress. That's a huge advantage. When I was commuting myself from Arlington into DC, I wasn't thinking at all about traffic. I wasn't thinking about which routes to take. I just took a quick bus ride from my home in Shirlington to the Pentagon, got on the train, and went. And there's something about that simplicity that people don't fully appreciate until they experience it. Now, if you're driving into Washington, D.C. from Northern Virginia, that's where things can get more complicated. You're dealing with 395, Route 66, bridges, merging traffic, and seemingly never-ending construction and highway work. And this is where people run into friction. Route 66, it's one of the main arteries, and it can work, but it depends heavily on timing and lane access. With the express lanes and HOV dynamics, it's not just, can I drive it? It's, what kind of access do I have? Let's talk about HOV and E-ZPass lanes. The HOV lanes and now the express lanes can be a game changer if you have a carpool or an E-ZPass flex. You can sometimes bypass major congestion, but if you don't, then you're sitting in traffic with everyone else and you better have a good podcast. I've had clients say, it's only a 25-minute drive. And I've had to gently say to them, that's one version of the story, because the daily version might be very different. I always tell clients, test the commute from your desired house on a random Tuesday or Wednesday, the exact time that you plan to leave the house for work. That way you get an accurate picture of what your commute will really be. Now, Tysons is its own world. It's a big business hub, and people often think that they'll be having a reverse commute to Tysons. However, it's gotten seriously more built up over the last few years. Check out my Tysons video on this channel for more details. If you're working in Tysons, your best housing area scenarios for an easy commute are McLean, Vienna, and Falls Church. These areas will give you shorter drives and fewer bottlenecks. Now, from Arlington to Tysons, on paper, Arlington to Tysons, it looks easy, but in reality, it often is not, because you will be crossing busy traffic patterns, and that can add friction to your daily commute. Now, let's move west. Areas like Fairfax, Centerville, Chantilly, and Western Fairfax. These are very popular areas, especially for people who want more space and newer homes and more home for the money. But now you're dealing with Route 66 much more directly. And 66 has its own personality, let me tell you. It can move well, or it can feel like it's completely locked up. Again, timing matters, lane access matters, and expectations matter. If you're working in the tech hubs out in Reston, Herndon, and Ashburn, this is a completely different equation. Now your goal is proximity to that corridor, because commuting east from there into DC can be very long. I worked with a couple recently relocating for a job in Reston. They initially thought they wanted to live closer to DC, but after we walked through their commute, they shifted. They chose to live near Reston. And what they told me later was this: our daily life feels much easier than we expected. That's a huge win. Now, let's talk about one of the most important and most misunderstood areas, the 95 corridor. Lorton, Woodbridge, Stafford, Fredericksburg. This gives you the reality of the 95 north in the morning. And this is where I'm going to be very direct. 95 north in the morning, any day of the week, can be brutal. Not always, but often enough that you need to respect it. And then you have what we call the Springfield mixing bowl, where multiple major highways come together. If you're going through that regularly, that becomes part of your daily experiences. It's one of those places that defines commuting in the Northern Virginia region. Now, the express lanes can help. They can absolutely change the experience of commuting, but they come with a cost, and they're not always consistent, and they can be pricey. I've had clients move further south for space and value, and many of them are very happy. But the ones who underestimated the commute felt it quickly. For certain commuters, VRE can be a great alternative. It's structured, predictable. You sit on the train, you ride, you're in. It's not flexible like driving it is, but for the right person, it can be a very good solution. Since COVID, the work from home shift has changed everything. If you're working remote, your options expand dramatically. But most people are actually hybrid these days, so the question becomes, how often am I making this trip into the office? Because even twice a week, that can matter. So, when you're choosing where to live in Northern Virginia, the question is not, what is the best area? It is, what commute experience am I willing to live with? Because that decision, it will shape your mornings, your evenings, your energy and your time, and ultimately, your quality of life here in Northern Virginia. So, If you're thinking about moving to Northern Virginia and trying to figure out where to live based on your commute into work, this is one of the most important conversations to have early on. It is something that I help people think through all the time. If you want to talk through your situation, I'm always happy to have that conversation. My contact information is in the description below, and if this video was helpful, I have other videos on this channel where I go deeper into neighborhoods, pricing, and what life really looks like across Northern Virginia.